Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Talk a little bit about role-playing games today, about some things that you can do to be a better game master. Incidentally, these are not new glasses. My old glasses that were broken last time are still very broken. I am still waiting on a referral to an ophthalmologist from my doctor so that I can get new glasses. This is a pair of my father's old computer glasses. They're not prescription. They are barely adequate for seeing about this far, and it's all I've got right now because my other glasses are out of alignment and cause shattering headaches, and shattering headaches aren't good. Anyway, being a game master. I want you to take a moment to imagine a character, just a character. Focus on their form, shape, gender, what era of play this character might be in. Are they fantasy or near modern or sci-fi? What do they look like? What do they carry as far as equipment? Once you have this character, a lot of effort goes into characters. Every role-playing game has a large segment of its content devoted to character generation. Characters are amazingly complex things. They're literary characters. They could be in a book or a movie or a role-playing game under the command of an author or a screenwriter or a player who is playing this player character. And there is no limit to the amount of variety you can have in characters when it comes right down to it, depending on the system you're planning. This character could be the most amazing character possible, given the system or the conceptual abilities of the writer who's putting them together. And this character, as of this moment, at this point in conception, means nothing. Because this character has nothing to interact with until we place this character in a setting. Whether this is the general game world or the intellectual property into which the character appears, the setting is what gives the character a place to be and things to do. Until then, a character is a static concept. It's a statue, it's a picture, it's a set of notes on a page with maybe some numbers. The game master is the setting. The game master is every sense of every character. They are everything the characters see, hear, smell, taste, touch. If the game includes other senses, magical senses, psionic senses, the game master is those senses as well. Nothing flows into the character's mind until it has passed through the game master's process of conveying it to the player. Setting is important. What the character wears, what the character knows, the equipment the character has, and how the character uses it are all partially reliant on the setting. When you went through the process of trying to think of this character, you had to go through, well, is this in the Star Wars universe? Can I give him a lightsaber? Is he a Darksider? Is this someone from Lord of the Rings? Is he aware of the fact that Sauron is the necromancer? Does he ever have a history with an Nazgul? These things, these elements of setting, history, are important to the nature and existence of the character. Setting is one of the most important things that a game master has to convey. There are a lot of different ways to convey it. Maps. Maps are very good because they give a very general overview of where you're at, what is around. Are there forests? Are there lakes? Are there cities? Are there buildings? Are there different nations? How do these nations feel about each other? How far is it for me to get to another nation from where I'm at? But maps are only the start. It is my very strong belief that in order to be a well-rounded, well-developed game master, you have to travel. One of the great gifts my parents gave me when I was a young man was that we were constantly traveling. Every summer, sometimes more often than just in the summer, there were family trips. I have seen a lot of the United States. My parents allowed me the benefit of a brief trip to Europe when I was in high school. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've been to resorts in Hawaii. I have wandered off the map in Las Vegas. And every place I've been is a set of elements that I have stocked up in my head, in my experience, that I can throw when a player wants to know what their character is encountering, what the character finds itself in. A game master, to be well-balanced and well-rounded, needs to be somewhat well-read. And well-read is a broader term as I'm using it now. I'm not just talking about reading a lot of books, although reading a lot of books is a really good start. But we have a huge amount of cultural heritage in this day and age, in our movies and our television shows, and a good grounding in cultural literacy. And not just knowing the classics, although the classics are a good place to start, but just like I know who Captain Ahab is, what his deal is, and why it's his deal, I should also have that knowledge about Luke Skywalker, Jack Burton, any Arnold Schwarzenegger character. I'm a child of the 80s, but I was born in 1968. Syndicated television gave me a huge volume of characters and their experiences for me to call on more often than not. As I am running a game, no matter what era it's in, space, near modern, even fantasy, I will have internal references to Get Smart, The Wild Wild West, Hogan's Heroes, Speed Racer. All of these things have elements which add together and help me create a setting. It helps to have a lot of stuff in your head. It helps to have seen a lot of things, been places, touched things. I've been in a German castle. I've been in the German castle. I took the walk up the mountain to Neuschwanstein. Mad King Ludwig's dream palace, unfinished, and still this huge, mad tower of stone and ambition hovering over the Rhine like a raven sitting on top of a tree. And that's what you want in your toolbox. If you can't go there, we also have this thing called the internet. Spend some time on YouTube. People are going there. People are recording their experiences and thank the Lord those people are there and doing that, because the game master now has this huge amount of information that they can go to and experience. Don't just read the words out of the book. Pre-planned adventures are fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But having an understanding of the setting that this adventure is in is key, not just to how you understand what's going on as the game master, but it's all about a process called immersion. I've talked about the relationship between hypnosis and role-playing games, that you've got people sitting there in that room with you, or online, or wherever your group meets, and they want to go someplace. They want to be taken someplace. They open their ears, they open their senses, they engage their imaginations, and now the game master needs to fill it. There is a responsibility inherent there. Yeah, the game master gets to declare what's going on and is the master of the storyline in as much as his players will let him. It's a two-way street. But the game master has the responsibility of making that existence for those fictional characters come to life in the minds of the players. This process does not start after all the characters are done and you announce the first encounter. This process does not start during character creation, where you're giving people what options they can have as they make their characters. This process starts when you first start describing the game you want to run. If you want to engage your players, and you do, you need to focus not just on what things are happening. You need to focus on what they look like, what they sound like. To some degree, on the taste and the smells and the tactile sense of the world that you want these people to visit. If you are using source material that exists in movies or television shows, you've got a big benefit, because you can just sit down and share that. Have a movie night. There is nothing wrong with starting your campaign with a movie night. Let's watch 1 or 2 or 7 of the Lord of the Rings movies. Let's watch the Star Wars saga in machete order. Let's watch some old westerns. Let's watch a few of these things. Movie nights. Movie nights are awesome. So that everyone gets a sense of what world you want to take them to. I am playing a one-ring game on my alternate Saturdays. Everyone there has seen all of the Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, and Hobbit movies. We have a good sense of what is happening. And the game master, because we've done this, because we all have that same amount of experience cinematically, the game master can shortcut some of his descriptions. If you're making a homebrew world, or something straight out of your own head, or something that has only ever appeared in these modules or the adventures that you're running, then you have a slightly harder road ahead of you. But I really enjoy that road. When I am running one-on-one playtesting and just practicing my skill with my writing partner, Victor Gibson, we have some goals for what we are running for one another. One of those goals is that we need to make one another hungry. At some point during the game, we're going to describe at least one meal that our player characters are enjoying. And we need to make those appealing. Very appealing, very appetizing. Very, I just ran this session and now I need to go get a hamburger or I'm going to die. I collect recipes. If you follow me on Facebook, and if you don't, why not? If you follow me on Facebook, I am constantly reposting recipes that people put up, and often it's these quick, tasty little things that get put together, and they're fast and really, really rich-looking, awesome desserts and meals. Every so often, it's Viking tavern bread. Can you imagine what it would be like if you bring your players to a point where they sit down in a tavern and they are just sitting there and your players are looking for the fight. Your players are looking for the encounter. They want that, when is the next thing to do going to happen? But then you say, give me a second, you pop into your kitchen and you come back with a piping hot loaf of period-appropriate bread stuffed with summer sausage and cheese, and tell them, the tavern just puts a loaf of this in front of you and says you must be hungry because you've been traveling. You're going to want some drinks with that. What do you ask for? That's very visceral. That's an experience. That's a game that those people aren't going to forget. I'm not saying you have to cook or bake or anything, but at least look at the recipe or look at a picture of it or see what people ate in the period and at least be able to describe it, like I just did. It's piping hot and it's got a really tough crust, a little oily to the touch, but salty too. Bread inside is very fluffy, but also in amongst the bread, mixed in almost, are chunks of hefty sausage, and there's melted cheese running throughout the length of the entire loaf. It's meant to be torn apart and devoured. It's salty, fills you up, but you need a drink. I have described meals in every era of role-playing game. In just about every everything back there, I have thrown a quick meal encounter. And usually, either just before or just after that, the group really wants to break for dinner or lunch or whatever appropriate at the moment. Can we order a pizza? And that's how you know you did it right. That is a group that is engaged in immersion. Now do that with everything. You exit the fairly enclosed tunnel into a wide area. There are shops everywhere. A huge stage in front of you. Festive decorations of the season. The shops in this particular area seem to have fanciful, ridiculously huge signs advertising their wares, whether it's music or a meal or both. Perhaps a bit of sweetness or weapons you might want to try. I could be describing any large bazaar in a fantasy city or Universal City Walk. I was there yesterday. The more information you give your players along various different sensory paths, the more engaged they are, the more real this experience feels, the more they walk through this adventure and out of it with a sense of, oh my God, I was just in an adventure. When there's a little gamer hangover at the end of the session, when everyone needs to take a few minutes and talk themselves down, talk about things in a gaming term because they've been so deeply immersed. When your character has set himself on fire for possibly good but probably not reasons. Sorry, Mike. and you feel sore and tired and burned and dehydrated, and you can't wait to get back together and do it all over again. When you get to your next session and you socialize for a few minutes because you haven't seen these people for a week or two, and then the game master puts out the dice and starts describing where you're at now, and it all comes back, and that time hasn't passed, and you might as well have been in this room playing this game all along. That's when you've got it right. That's when you've set aside this alternate universe in everyone's mind that only forms when people get together and the game master starts describing what's going on and everyone starts reacting. You have immersion. Give me a perception roll. Based on smell, you might notice something. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's something off in here. Everything else looks fine, but you get a hint of decay. Yeah, the music's great. Give me a perception roll based on hearing. Yeah, there's something that's discordant here. It's not just the music. There's something in the crowd. It sounds off, just off enough. It bothers you. Anyone feel like running their hand across the wall? Okay, give me a perception roll based on touch. Ooh, yeah, that looks like tile, but it's wet and kind of sticky and warm. It's not water, but yeah, maybe that tile isn't really red. Maybe that's blood. Every sense is another way to engage someone. Every sense is another way that someone is imagining something and lighting up another part of their brain to generate that imagined perception. The more of their brain you light up, the more you have them. The more immersed people get. And when you have people fully immersed, that's a good game. Terrible things could happen in that game. People could die. There could be horrible accidents. There could be the worst combat ever. People could completely screw up every roll they've got. Half the party could end up in comas or cut in half, and that's a good game. Because they were there. There is a perception amongst game masters and role players. There's this thing about the player who just wants to get to their next fight so they can beat things up and move on. These characters don't really have homes. They have time that they're running around killing things. These characters in the control of these players are commonly referred to as murder hobos. And you're going to get as much engagement out of a murder hobo as they're willing to put into it, as they want to kill things. That's it. I'm in here for the... There's half the book is the combat rules, and I want to use every single page of it. Okay. People need to blow off stress. People want to feel empowered. And that's one thing that role-playing games can do, is make you feel empowered, give you a sense of control. And that's one way it happens. There's nothing wrong with being a murder hobo. It's a little annoying when everyone else is trying to have a slightly deeper game, but a little annoying. It's also, everyone takes their turn as a murder hobo at some point in time. Every player snaps, every character reaches their limit, and then you're running around stabbing people just to see how long it takes to stab someone to death in this game system. Sorry, Jeremy. But you can still engage that player You can still immerse that player. The moment you've made a murder hobo feel a little bit bad about someone that died because of their actions, not necessarily someone they killed, but, you know, the child at home is going to starve now because the father who is out trying to be a henchman to earn some money for their medicine, yeah. Story time. I'm running a near modern game in the future of my, in Destiny 2025, essentially. And one of the players accidentally destroys Tucson, Arizona. They were exerting more force than they should have been, given the situation, and induced an NPC to assist them by exerting more force than they should have, given the situation. And all the dice rolls came incredible, and they hit the ground in Tucson so hard that the player character essentially became a kinetic kill weapon and vaporized half the town. That game ended shortly after that. We were close to the end of the adventure anyway. It didn't end as a result of that. That was just one of the interesting things that happened towards the end of the game. But one of the other players, to this day, makes up stories about little Susie. Little Susie is a little girl who didn't die in Tucson, not right away, but slowly wasted away in the disaster afterwards. Little Susie is this tragic cautionary tale that is constantly thrown in the face of the player who nuked Tucson, who is to some degree a murder hobo. Sorry, Max. But feels really, really horrible every time a little Susie story comes up. That's immersion. That's immersion. That's people getting involved. That is your game taking on a life outside of the game, where the story and the legend continues, even in the tragic form of a slowly dying child who would be just fine if not for the actions of an overzealous player character. Once you reach that level of immersion, once you've got people that engaged to where it takes them, they devote time to it over the week. They think about things. That when the game ends, the characters still interact and have a life. When you ever get back to that game, these characters have grown and have a greater understanding and are either going to make the same stupid mistakes or make entirely new, completely different stupid mistakes. That's kind of what you're going for. Role-playing is an art form. It is all of the depth and complexity of storytelling, but it's interactive. It's a group storytelling. And when you're storytelling and the story comes to life, you're doing it right. And you don't get any closer to a story coming to life in a role-playing game than when the game ends and everyone was so immersed and so involved that the game might be over, but the character and the world that they existed in continues to live on. I threw some quick shout-outs there next to apologies. I lit myself on fire in Mike's One Ring game because it seemed like the best way to make the giant spider go away, and ultimately it worked. Not before my dwarf mostly burned through everything except the dwarf. Belly survived, but beard singed. Jeremy in his first GURPS game just couldn't stop stabbing people because he was amazed it wasn't killing them, because it was his first GURPS character, and he built it on the spur of the moment, which you can't do with a GURPS character, and he had not optimized for damage in any way, shape, or form, so he was essentially doing paper cut damage with a dagger, and it was amazing him that people were not just dying no matter how often he stabbed them. And Max? Max is an extremely capable gamer who enjoys pushing the envelope of being a murder hobo. And, as that is his goal, he's very good at it. But we're not having another lightsabers on the feet conversation. We're just not. I look forward to sharing some more game mastering insights. Travel, watch movies, read books. Fill your head with details, because you never know when you're going to need to throw some. A couple of other things that matter to me. If you like this video, feel free to like it. Button. Click like. If you dislike it, feel free. Comment. I look forward to people's comments on my videos. If you have a different experience or would like to know more, if you have any questions, please feel free. Put them in the comments. Subscribe. I would like to see my subscriptions go up, and I would like people to be able to keep track of when these videos come out. So, also a button down here. Subscribe. If you really liked this video, I invite you to visit my Patreon page at www.patreon.com/ScottCorum. Every bit helps, and it allows me to make better videos, throw some more special effects and stuff, and continue to produce gaming supplements. For now, I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me, and I will see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum. Murder hobos are nature's way of saying you don't have to write an adventure this week.